Hello and welcome to our Property Perspective podcast, a podcast where we aim to explore the different perspectives on property, the industry, and anything else we find interesting. So I'm your host, Nick Cowdy. I'm a real estate professional and the principal at Cowdy Real Estate. We're a small boutique property company, and I think we're really good at what we do. So the topic today, which we're talking about, is about architecture and more specifically bespoke renovations. And our guest today is Edd Coomber. How are you, Ed?
Good, Nick. How are you?
Good. This is our very first podcast, so you'll have to, I don't really know what I'm doing, but you'll just have to.
I'm sure we'll work it out.
We'll work it out as we go. Yeah. But let's just start off with a bit of background about you and your skill set. I know it, but the listeners don't.
Yeah. So I'm an architectural designer, obviously locally based here in Christchurch. I've been in the industry for quite a while, graduated in 2010. I've worked in Christchurch for a number of years, then did a number of years up in Auckland. Came back down here 2019, just before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Basically to sort of get myself a house because it was too expensive in Auckland, and
Nice.
that's kind of pretty much where we ended up today, really, talking about this.
Do you find practicing in Christchurch and Auckland very different?
Different projects. I think the environment is the same, I think, anywhere in New Zealand as far as the culture, but the range of projects. I mean, where I was working in Auckland, we would do a lot of bungalow and villa renovations and extensions because there's no land, so people are redeveloping what's there. And then I moved down here, and the first studio I worked for, everything was in Queenstown and Wanaka, and it was all new build. Completely different project range, but whereas the Christchurch projects that I'm working on tend to be a bit of both.
Nice.
Yeah.
It was good. Keep everything fresh. So just back to in our topic of bespoke renovations, I made the topic around what we wanted to talk about, which is your house and that renovation you've done, which is amazing. But it's like, what actually is a bespoke renovation? And like, in my mind, I was kind of thinking about it, and I was like, well, what I came to the end with was that they're planned to fit around the ideas that you have rather than being dictated by something you're buying off the shelf. Like if you're going to Bunnings and grabbing a kitchen, and then all of a sudden you have to make that fit around your space rather than making the kitchen bespoke to fit what you want it to do. So like, what comes to mind when you're thinking about bespoke renovations? Yeah,
I think generally the idea of bespoke is, you're right, it's very much personal to the client or the project, and not sort of a architecture by numbers, if you know what I mean. I like the concept of slow architecture, which, without getting too high and lofty, essentially instead of building a house quickly and then living in it, it's very much developing a project over a long period of time to let it develop organically. And I think with my particular house, I mean, it was a renovation, but it took me a number of years to get to where I am today, whereas others might have done it in 6 months.
I think that's a really good point, because it's one of the biggest pieces of advice I'm usually giving to people when they're looking at houses and talking about what they're going to do with them. I'm like, hey, sit back and live in it for a year and
100%.
Think about kind of what's important, because you may hate something at the beginning and then it's the part that you like the most.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I've still got the concepts that I did when I put an offer on this house. I obviously couldn't help myself and had to do some concept design. And I think probably there's one or two things that are the same that ended up happening. Because, once you're in there for a year or so, you know what it's like living in the space, and you see it in different lights and different seasons, and you're like, probably not a good idea. So,
like, it's really interesting. What just popped into my mind now is, do you know the piano house in Sumner, the Paul Pascoe one? It's like the living's upstairs.
Oh, yeah, from the 50s, I think it is.
Yeah, super early. So friends of ours actually bought that house, which is super cool. But Paul, apparently he sat on that, I don't know how long the period was, but he would go and camp out on that site and draw and sketch, so he knew exactly where everything was before he designed the house, which I think is really...
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you can do that 100%, and if you bought a house to renovate, you totally can. And often it works in your favour anyway, because you've just bought the house, you've just dropped all your money trying to get in it, and usually you're pretty skint by the time you move in. So you sort of have to wait, you know.
Yeah. How was the process in finding, because it's that kind of classic 70s living downstairs, 2-bed upstairs bathroom, right?
Yep.
Take long to find it?
It took me 6 days. So I'm a little bit unusual in the sense that a lot of my mates were obviously looking for property around the same time and spending a long time trying to find it. But for me, I had a lot of constraints. Obviously, the main one that everyone has is the budget.
Yeah.
I could have spent more, but I opted to spend less and get something that I knew that I could afford on my own.
Yeah.
And then the other, obviously, location and the size that I needed, but also I had a very specific sort of thing I was looking for. It was either going to be a sort of 70s original condition townhouse, or maybe like a sort of 30s bungalow. Or it's very much a narrow field that I was looking in, which, to be honest, really helped in finding the property. So I knew what I had, knew what I wanted, and didn't waste my time looking at things that I either couldn't afford or didn't want. So ironically, this house was technically the second house I looked at.
Yeah.
The first one was the one next door, which was actually on market. And the agent asked me what I wanted, and I said, this is perfect, but I don't want anyone else's sort of half-assed renovation. And she said, the one next door is untouched and original. And I'm like, that's exactly what I want, you know. So strangely enough, it was literally the second house I looked at.
Wow.
6 days after getting here. Obviously, I looked at a few other ones over a few weeks as well, but I just knew I'd seen the one.
You saved yourself a lot of weekends.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I think you have to, even when you see the first one you like, there's that curiosity of like, I need to eliminate all others so I can, you know, sleep at night knowing, okay, I did give it a shot.
Yeah.
There's nothing better out there.
Well, I guess in your industry as well, you'll see other houses and you'll be able to decide what you think a good space is or a good starting point.
Absolutely. And that was, again, coming back to that thing of not picking up anybody else's half-assed project. You know, it was, again, being in the industry that we're in, you can totally see through someone's painted the kitchen cupboards and quickly thrown some cheap carpet in. And, you know, while some others who are looking on the market might see that as a, you know, freshly renovated house, we can totally see through the lack of quality. So I didn't want that because I'd have to undo someone else's. So I literally found the dirtiest, smelliest house, you know.
Yeah.
You've got to see it beyond that.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, because you've got the big backyard and things like that and all the
100%,
privacy, right? Which I think that's one, and another wee gem for me is don't worry about the things you can change. Look at the things that can't be changed, which is your outlook and, you know, your backyard size and things like that.
Yeah, I've never heard that, and I think that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So in the planning process that you went through, was there like a vibe you're going for? Was this an ever-changing thing? What was kind of the process?
I think the thing I set out to do initially, or the main, I guess, brief that I gave myself was to do something for me, not for resale, not for anybody else, not for mass market appeal. I was like, this is going to be my house, and it's going to be my personality, what I like, my taste. I don't have to. I'm the only client, you know, and I'm also the designer, so I'm free to throw in all those ideas that clients might have rejected, you know. So that was kind of the main driver was, you know, don't care what anybody else thinks or likes or, you know, I don't care about resale. I'm just doing it for me. And I want to do it well, and I wanted to do it with quality. Yeah,
well, I sincerely hope this is obviously going to pay off for you as well. But it is those kind of bold moves and those personal touches. I think you can always see it in a house. And as an agent, I always walk in and I'm like, thank you, this is fantastic. Because surprisingly, if someone with a good eye or makes good decisions in a renovation and they do things for themselves, it's so obvious because the quality comes out and the little bit of X factor that comes through on it. So instead of that kind of white, everything's just made in neutral tones to satisfy everybody. You kind of catch the middle of the range rather than, you know, the polarizing approach where you're going to get either people who absolutely love it or not.
Absolutely, and I think that was one thing that I definitely set out to do when I started because the renovation was done in sort of 2 stages. It was done with whatever I could afford and whatever I could do with my own skills, and then it was I think November 2021 where it was all go for the serious stuff. So it was like, the builders were there, the full new kitchen, new bathroom. That was where the major work was done.
Yeah.
And when I set out to design that, I already roughly knew what I was going to do, but when I actually had to put sort of pen to paper and get it done, you and I had spoken before I did it.
Yeah. I think you just had paint the datum line painted.
100%. Yeah, just did what I could. But yeah, the initial thing was I would rather have someone either love this house or hate this house.
Yeah.
Rather than be kind of in the middle and forgettable,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Did you, because you're saying 20, so obviously there's this big supply problem and delays and building cost escalation that was like running through that period of time. Did that catch you out at all, or were you all
I think I was just
lucky?
I think I was just kind of like running up the beach with that massive wave sort of coming in behind me. Yeah.
Good analogy.
I think I did well. I managed to sneak in before a lot of price hikes. Probably the biggest issue was there was slight delays with the door and window joinery because they were having issues getting the hardware out of Auckland because it was, and I think they were still in lockdown. And then of course I was really worried that we were going to go into another lockdown when I had like no windows or anything like that, or no bathroom, because it was possible,
Yeah.
Thankfully, to be honest, it was like you couldn't have asked for a better renovation. There was no nasty surprises, no cost blowouts. Everything went to plan and schedule, and I was like, man, this renovation thing's easy. What don't people complain about,
Everyone tells me, because I'm just building a house at the moment, and everyone says, no, this isn't going to be a stressful process at all. And so far it hasn't been.
No.
But, it has the potential to go that way at any stage.
I think some advice that my old man gave me, they built a house in the 90s, which is kind of where my interest in what I do started.
Yeah.
But he tells me stories about how he would be on the phone to the builders every day, multiple times, like harassing them, like not giving an inch to basically get stuff done. And I've taken that on board, like even in my professional career. Like I don't let people kind of, walk all over you or kind of take advantage. You've got to be like a dog with a bone. And I totally did that with the renovation. And on the onset, I teamed up with a really good builder, James Cunningham. He was great. And he was the same. Like there was a few potential issues, but between him and I kind of breathing down the supplier's neck, it 100% straightened it out. And yeah, I think having a really good builder and a good team and that sort of thing really helped. But
and cutting edge kitchens there, like you guys.
Oh, I mean, those guys, cutting edge
them.
kitchens are a dream. I didn't have to stress about them at all. I was like, this is what I want, drew the drawings, and those guys are on the same wavelength. So, that was easy. But yeah, I think it's just the biggest thing was the planning. I think you just got to be prepared and plan everything out and just literally schedule everything and not let it deviate from that,
Because you had like a must-have. I remember when we were talking about it before you started, and you were talking about the bath going in, and I was like, well, I'm not sure if that's going to fit. Obviously, me as a real estate agent versus an architect, and like I've realised this now, especially with my partner Prue, who's an architect as well. Is always like trust you guys. What is in my mind isn't the thing. But was there any other must-haves? The bath, obviously. You can tell us about that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, decent bath. When I bought the house, that was a must-have. I was like, I don't want a shower over a bath. I want a separate bath and a separate shower.
Yeah.
Some of the must-haves in the reno are. I think the main thing was it had to be quality, and I wanted to spend probably more than most would for a house in Linwood, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if I'm going to do it, the aim was to do it for me for the next 5 years or so, possibly longer. But it wasn't a short-term turnaround thing. So I wanted really good quality appliances, a really good kitchen. I think any advice to anybody is do it for yourself, and I think that gives you a different approach.
Totally.
So you really push for what you want. And I think it's definitely turned out that way.
It's like I'm still the one thing I tend to point out to most people, because I just think it's like kind of incredible, is that the the induction hob talks to the
Oh,
extra.
yeah.
I don't know
100%.
how that works.
I don't know how that works, but honestly, the Electrolux, man, oven and stove and everything is just brilliant. And I enjoy cooking, and I hated cooking in the old kitchen because I had the classic like rental property, like paprika, all-in-one, stove thing with 3 elements that worked, and the oven had no fan, and it was hard, no extract, like everything was a mission. But you go home and you cook dinner, and it's like it's just easy, and it's like I think this is what good design can do. Yeah,
definitely.
It's a very small space. It's not a big kitchen. It's not a big house, but like using what you've got, in the best way possible, gives you a decent result.
Did you to and fro between thinking you're going to get a like freestanding dining table in there, or was it always the plan to have that kind of extension on the kitchen, which is essentially your dining table, right?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I sort of looked at it off and on. Originally, I wasn't going to remove the wall in the middle at all. I was going to keep the kitchen separate because I'm not a huge fan of open plan.
Yeah.
But I let that go because I opted to not move the switchboard where it is. I left it where it was, which dictated that wall had to stay.
Yeah.
So that kind of changed the design a little bit, which turned out to be a blessing in disguise because by not giving over space for a dining table and incorporating a preparation area into what would be a dining table anyway, it serves 2 purposes. It's a small house.
Yeah.
I've got 40 square meters downstairs to play with, and you've totally got to. Things have to have dual purpose.
Yeah.
So you can cook dinner, prep dinner, and then you've got a dining space.
That's like, this is when we're talking about how good design can make, better for the way that you live. Like you look at, and we sell a lot of these new builds, but you can look at a standard new build floor plan, and you can look at that, which is exactly the same, maybe your 40 square meters, and the usability because of these, I guess, architectural theories or knowing kind of what you're doing and it's for yourself, I think has made things ultimately better.
Yeah, I think so. I think designers are really good at imagining scenarios and how people are going to use the space. And so for me, I imagined me being in that kitchen, cooking dinner, and people standing at the bench or leaning against the staircase, because it's all in the same area, and probably knocking back a wine or a beer while I'm in there, preparing dinner or whatever. And then I thought, well, if I didn't have this bench area, what would people be doing? Will they be sitting at a table while this is going on, or standing around next to you, which is kind of getting in the way? And so the space was very different and sort of a little bit more disconnected. So I thought, naturally at a party, everyone hangs around the kitchen. So it's like, well, let's encourage that. And then when people need to sit down and eat, the stool's right there where they're standing anyway.
Easy.
So for me, it was like, you tend to spend more time in the kitchen making food than you do eating food.
Yeah.
So it was more important to actually have a much bigger area for preparation, and then to put your groceries down, to work at if I had to. So I think for me it works really well because, like I say, you can prep and then eat, but anyone who's ever tried to prepare food at a dining table, it's a nightmare. It's too late.
Yeah.
So,
I was just thinking, I was about to ask you like what are the luxuries in the house, and then I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, all the things you've done are actually like luxuries, going forte floor, like the kitchen the way it is, the bathroom, the bath, whatever. But there's a few items that stand out to me, I think. Your tapware and the lighting on top of everything else.
Yeah, the tapware's great. It's the stuff that we would put in our clients' houses anyway, which, to be honest, I don't really know how I pulled that off because I certainly don't have the budget that some of our clients have. So, but I wanted things to be sort of more organic. So I went for that aged brass, which will age and patina over time.
Yeah.
Because I don't like things to be precious and, you got to stress out, keep it clean and all that sort of stuff. I was like, no, go for quality, do it well and do it once. I completely agree with that, and like the patina look it ends up being quite timeless, doesn't it? And
because
personal.
it's just natural material.
100%, yeah.
And like before we had started the podcast, we were just talking about what we were going to talk about, and one of them was, did you have any regrets? And it ended up kind of no, but
Yeah, no, I don't.
because you didn't change the taps.
100%. Oh, yeah. The poor contact at Plumline, good mate of mine, Lisa, she specified it all for me after I asked her to, and then I saw the price and I came back and tried to dial it back, and probably didn't save that much money in hindsight. And then when I looked at it and thought, okay, now I've gone to a matte black, and there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you like, but I knew that I was compromising to go to a cheaper range. And then I thought to myself, you know what? Every time I walk into that bathroom and see this tapware, I'm going to think, for the sake of maybe $600-700, I've shortchanged myself, and it's going to annoy me. So I was like, you know what? Just do it.
Yeah.
You know, and the amount of overall budget, and obviously you don't want to do that with everything because you'll end up spending twice as much. But it's kind of that. What am I compromising? You know, and what am I losing by compromising?
I learned that the hard way. Like in a renovation I did 8 years ago, I think. One thing I did was like the budget was getting tight, and I freaked out and I down-specced both showers, and it was the only thing after that I could look at, and I was like, was that really worth it for like, I might have saved $800 or something.
Yeah, 100%.
Like once you paid the bill, it's done, right?
Yeah, it's all going on the mortgage.
Yeah. But winning a Best Award, that's so Best Awards. Actually, you're better at probably saying what the Best Award is.
Absolutely. So long story short, Best Awards are the awards for the Designers Institute in New Zealand, and that's any discipline. So that'll be, for mine is spatial, but it'll be graphic design, like web design, product design, everything. So, and then they have their awards every year, which are known as the Best Awards, and you submit your projects. Then they release a range of finalists, and then they'll have an award evening where you'll either get a bronze, a silver, or a gold. And so I wasn't going to throw mine in, and my boss Tobin was like, "Just do it, man, go for it." So I did, and a few weeks later, I was pretty shocked to see that I'd become a finalist, and then the website crashed, so I wasn't sure whether it was real or not. And then last year was given a bronze award, which I was completely blown away by and humbled, to be honest. Yeah.
It's like, it is amazing, and it's amazing being a small, a humble project in Linwood, Christchurch, that's up against these
modest
massive,
projects.
big budget houses around the place, and
and credit to the judges and the institute for actually, giving an award to a small budget, modest project, as opposed to, like you say, there's other guys out there that do beautiful work, but not all of us can afford to spend $3-4 million on a house.
Well, it is encouraging for people who are looking and they want to elevate the design in their home to know that kind of thing can be recognised. Yeah. So I think it
does underscore that design isn't just for the wealthy.
Yeah, for sure. We'll take a quick break, and we're going to do Nick's real estate report. Pretty much, if you have a friend who's a real estate agent or a real estate agent, one of the first questions you say is, how's the market? So I'm pretty used to spitting this out every day, but I thought I'd pull out some data. This is quite interesting, actually. This whole market has been really interesting, but we always look at the Trade Me numbers for what stock's on the market, because that gives us a pretty good indication of where things are. So at the moment, there's 2,200 properties on the market. Same time last year, there was 1,500. So we were right in the fury of the mania last year at that time, and that's why the stock numbers were low. But now we're kind of, each month we're getting closer and closer to being back even with a year ago with stock numbers. So 2.2 kind of represents a pretty even market. Stuff's moving. It's not staying too stagnant. The median house price for January for the Ryan's REINZ data was 622,000. That's versus 665,000 the year before. So we're back about 6.5% on a year ago. But to put it in real perspective, January 2021, the median house price was 520,000. If we pull back then to January 2020, just before COVID, the median house price was 470,000. So we're actually, we're $100,000 more than 2 years ago on average. So we have to keep everything in perspective. It's not like it was, but it was never going to stay that way. And I think it's a good thing in the end of the day for the market anyway. Sorry, now we're back to Ed. Yesterday you had some surprise.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know if we've mentioned this earlier or not, but my house is on the market. But yeah, I had some I wouldn't even say door knockers, a lovely couple who I had chatted to for a few minutes, just sort of walked through the gate. And I got a bit of a surprise, but I'm pretty sure she got one hell of a shock when I opened the door. And they just thought nobody was home. They thought it was empty. So
they'll just come and have a look.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I haven't heard that happening before, but I was talking to one of the people at work and they're like, yeah, well, when she said, well, we've gone and done that, but that's because we knew it was staged and we thought we'd have a look. But it's kind of funny that it was just a funny story.
It was. It did give me a laugh. Yeah.
I was quite shocked, but as long as people were nice, you shouldn't really do that if you're listening. But if you're nice about it, hey, then good on you. What I did forget to say is we're actually selling Ed's house at the moment, 533 Trent Street in Linwood.
Yep.
It's a very, very nice house. If you do want to come and look at it, certainly get in touch or come to the open homes. And also, if you want to buy it, it's there for you to buy and you can live in this little gem yourself. Another thing that was really interesting that's come up from, you've brought it up before and one of my colleagues at work as well, but it's really unassuming from the street. And it was really interesting. You were saying it's kind of a trend in Melbourne, not that your house is like that, but
yeah, I'm not sure if it's a trend, but I guess it's a concept, I suppose. And some of the Sydney and Melbourne sort of inner city houses where some people choose not to spend a lot of money like making these old terraces and stuff look really, really amazing from the street because it invites, I guess, a bad element to think that house has been done up. It's probably got a lot of expensive things inside. Yeah. So it's that kind of rat rod thing where it's like, well, if you keep it unassuming and quiet, and my house being way down the back of the block, you really don't know until you actually walk in and people walk in and they're like, oh, holy crap, this is not what I expected at all. Yeah. I really like that. There's something about that whole concept that is really attractive to me. It's I don't know why. It's like really wealthy millionaires driving Morris Minors or something 100%. Like that. It's just there's something intriguing about that whole concept. So we've only got a very short time left, but probably any takeaways for people doing a renovation? Yeah, plan for a start. Plan. Get a designer. If you can afford it, 100% do it because it will add a lot of value and probably stretch your money further. And also forget resale. Just do what you want to do and you'll end up with a better product, 100%. Totally. Or just buy my house.
Yeah, you buy one already done. We've got one we prepared earlier.
Honestly, whoever buys it, I just hope they enjoy living there as much as I enjoyed creating it. So.
Yeah, I think we definitely, from what I've seen, there's someone who's going to really love it. Yeah, awesome. We'll see what you see in it. So
and that's what I want at the end of the day. Yeah, 100%.
All right. Well, that was really fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that. So thanks for listening. I'm supposed to say something in these. Like, subscribe, follow, and
share.
Yeah, we'll have some more coming up in the next couple of weeks. So thank you, and thanks for listening.